The information shared on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While we discuss topics related to mental health, well-being, and emotional support, we are not providing therapy or medical services. Always seek the advice of your physician, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health condition. If you are in crisis, feeling unsafe, or need immediate support, please contact a mental health professional or emergency services in your area. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organizations or institutions.
Get inspired, get motivated with M.A.Y.A and the M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast.
Something that I take pride in is trying to be forward thinking, thinking outside the box, challenging myself. And as I challenge myself, hopefully I challenge you.
Find M.A.Y.A on Twitter and Instagram at M.A.Y.A_Akai. On Facebook at M.A.Y.A Akai Presents.
We're going to talk health, wealth, fitness, mental health, financial, lots of different things that can empower you as you seek out the ambition that you're pursuing.
Or get everything M.A.Y.A at M.A.Y.A_Akai.com.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to episode 70 of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. But hopefully by now what you have tapped into is we're doing something a little different on these Saturdays for the show. I have launched, this is going into week 3 of the Ambition Show, where I feature people that I feel you need to know because they are doing exceptional things that move beyond themselves. They're very altruistic, but they're a prime example of when passion meets purpose and it's driven by ambition. And our guest today, like our other two, is no short than amazing. Thomas LaGrave Jr., who is a former, corpsman in the U.S. Navy SEALs. He's an author, some very good books, by the way, and a social worker. But before we jump into that, I always have to do my housekeeping things. As you know, I like to make sure if you're new to the show, you understand that what we do here at M.A.Y.A is we look to embrace salient topics about mental wellness. I often refer to it as mental wellness versus mental health because I feel that you progress from your wellness, health to illness. And I see it a little differently maybe than some people do, and words can be very interchangeable. So I like to take the idea of mental wellness and give it a fresh and forward thinking perspective. On the podcast, we're going to focus on pulling back that veil of self-doubt and sabotage that, let's be honest, so many of us plague ourselves with in our lives. I want you to harness the idea of ambition and motivation so that you can have the satisfaction and success you want in your daily lives. I want people to think about happiness and satisfaction on a daily basis, not like this huge and future thinking, because we often are groomed to believe that our lives should always be future thinking. That's why so many of us, let's be honest, struggle to be present. So if you are a first-time listener or viewer, welcome. I always say buckle up for safety, because occasionally it can be an unexpected bumpy ride. I, or maybe one of my guests, may say something that really resonates with you or something that you haven't thought about, and that's okay. Now, of course, if you are a returning listener or viewer, well, always welcome back. Appreciate your support. You're familiar with what we do here. I always recommend for this time you've carved out to listen to the podcast, whether it's live, whether you're going back to one of the ways that you can listen, it doesn't matter. I always say grab pencil, paper, pen to jot down maybe some thoughts that may surface as you're listening to the podcast. Because I always encourage people to reach back out if they have questions, because that's where the journey begins when you start to question and have inquiry about things. So that's the key thing. So if you missed the first 2 episodes of the Ambition Show, no worries. You can always find previous episodes of M.A.Y.A in the iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Spotify. Pretty much if it's a podcast platform, you can find it. Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. Of course, I always say an easy way to get everything M.A.Y.A is if you just go to my website, which is maya-speaks.com for all things M.A.Y.A. I always want to keep kind of sharing. I have an inspirational blog, which I only do once a week, and I post something on Wednesday that I really want you to reflect on for a full 7 days, not every day. And this week's one is very interesting, so I would tell you to check it out. As everyone knows, my passion and something I've been driven to do for a while is to talk about menopause. So I have my Me on Pause blog, which it's very interesting. This week's topic is actually about understanding menopause, and interesting enough, Are you trying to tell me it's not as simple and cut as I think it is? It's not. So make sure you check out those two blogs. Like I said, I only post weekly. And if you subscribe and share, then guess what? You can be notified when these things are there. Always, you can get social with me, and things have gotten a little easier. I finally got it together and have a shared platform. So you can find me on Facebook, IG, X, and YouTube. All you do is now just have to search M.A.Y.A Speaks to You, and voila, all things M.A.Y.A are there. So, everyone, as you know, one of the things we talk about is the M.A.Y.A Toolbox. And even though these are the ambition shows, I want to say this. The toolbox with the M.A.Y.A show is I'm always giving you something that you should use, talking about self awareness, self worth. So, our key thing in our toolbox, as you should know by now, if you're a returning listener, is you should make sure that you have your emotional intelligence out because it is the thing that will help you to grow. Because remember, emotional intelligence is not about just understanding your emotions, it's also about understanding the emotions around you. So make sure as we start the show, because I'm going to tell you something, our next guest is going to drop some nuggets. I need to make sure you have your emotional intelligence out front and center to really process a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. So as I talk about the ambition shows, and this is actually the third installment of it, which makes me so proud that I've been consistent and had amazing guests. And as I told you, the guests only get better as we move along. So this is week 3. Week 1, we had Tamar Blue was on the stage with us. She is the CEO of Mental Happy, which is actually a mental health support group. So if you've ever been looking for a support group or want to create a support group, you should probably check out Mental Happy because it has amazing tools. And especially if you want to create a support group, it's HIPAA compliant. It gives you so many tools to reach so many people within your community and even around the world. Last week, we had on Julian Bermudez, who is the founder of Psychedelic Integration, and it's all about trauma therapy. And it's so amazing, holistic, and true how he works with his clients. So we are now into week 3, and we have Thomas LaGrave Jr., who's coming on. And I'm so excited about having him on as a guest because I think often what is missed by so many people, and you hear it often about working with youth and trying to make a difference in the world. And as we know right now, the world is probably seeming highly complicated to most of us. Well, enter Thomas LaGrave Jr. Pretty much the thing that I love when I had an opportunity to be able to chat with Thomas, because as I mentioned, I talk with everybody before I actually have them on the show, because I need to understand, one, are they really a good fit for my listeners? And two, I need to understand what it is that they do. And when I heard his story, I was just absolutely like, this has made me rethink my idea about working with younger people because I love working with emerging adults. I often struggle with teens in my mind. And he helped me to understand in my own way that I really didn't struggle. It was me just being resistant with children for some reason. And it could be because I don't have my own. I don't know. But he opened my eyes in a way about today's youth. And I just think when you hear what he has to say, it's going to change the way maybe you think about your sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, or maybe some kids you're working with that could really use this type of guidance. Thomas is a best-selling author. He's a licensed clinical social worker, and he's a founder of M.A.Y.A Academy, which at one point was a year-long immersive, workshop. But here's the thing: everybody who starts something finds a way that they want to grow and to reach more people. So even with M.A.Y.A Academy, that itself is evolving into something more because he's so dedicated into educating and healing and the mentorship at that point with adolescent men, but he also has a passion for young people. As I mentioned, he is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. But here's the thing. He has spent 35 years. And by the way, he has a birthday coming up. So he's definitely dedicated almost more than half his life. Seriously, to working with more than 3,000 young men, specializing in the psychological and developmental challenges they often have. Can I just flat out own this? And I hope most people do. When it comes to mental wellness, we tend to want to sweep men under the rug and not give them the attention that they really need. And I like that Thomas is actually focused on that, but he's also focused on working with young people. But here's the thing that really appeals to me, and I have so much respect for him, is his transparency. Is that he is a recovering addict and alcoholic and 3 decades, he's been working on being a better person. So he's taken his experience and rolled it into his professional journey to work with people. So without me diving deep into this, because we're going to talk about his 2 books, which I think I'm going to encourage everyone to go get, because not just because he's my guest, but I think what he has to say is important. But without further ado, let's bring to the ambition stage my third guest on the Ambition Show, Thomas LaGrave Jr. Thomas, how are you?
My, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. I'm
You
doing excellent now.
well, you were probably like, is she ever gonna shut up? It's okay. Eventually when you do podcasting, you gotta do all your housekeeping stuff. But anyways, I'm excited to have you on because you bring so much to the table. So with this being started, I always like to share with my listeners. I tell my guests, give my listeners a little bit of your background so they can understand how your passion and purpose has brought you to where you are, because everybody has a story that builds into what their success is.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine goes back to the age of 14 is when it all began. That was when I did my first drink and my first drug. Shortly thereafter, probably within the year, I was an addict alcoholic, but it took me 15 more years before the bottom completely dropped out. So I went from 14 to 18, doing drugs and being high school, sports. I had friends, family on the outside looked good. Everything appeared wonderful. Inside, drama and hurt and pain and insecurity and all of that. So at the age of 18, I got two younger brothers, two younger siblings, and I got caught getting high with my younger brother, and my father threw me out of his house. And at the age of 18, I'm like, that's it. I'm not going back. I'm not apologizing. I can handle this. I'm going to move forward. And this was the late 70s, 1978. And so the only option that there was at that point for me was I chose to go in the military. This was 4 years after the end of Vietnam, and nobody in their right mind wanted anything to do with the military. So it was quite easy for me to get in and get what I wanted. I had always wanted to be a doctor. And in the Navy, they have a rate that's called hospital corpsman. So we get to the third week of boot camp, and it turns out that there's a program that you can take a screening test for that's Navy SEALs. Now, at that point, I've got no one in my family that's ever been military. I have no clue as to what I've gotten myself into and what a Navy SEAL is. I saw a picture of a cargo net, and that net was what I wanted to climb because I was athletic. Earlier on, I was a Boy Scout, and during jamborees, they had obstacle courses. And so I wanted to climb that cargo net. And that was what I thought I was getting myself into. So long story short, I ended up at a place called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. And this is where I began a process of becoming a Navy SEAL. After 6 months, this would have been February 29th, 1980. I graduate from BUDS Class 106 and begin a magnificent journey. It was like nothing I had prior or ever experienced, and it was fantastic. Problem was that issue I brought with me from the age of 14. In my 9th year, 6th month, it caught up to me. And at that point, I was discharged from SEAL Team 1 for drug use. And that's where life became horribly difficult, but that was the changing and the new opportunity that I was given that brings me here to you today. So what do you think?
It's interesting that you found that the military could be that piece of the puzzle that
Yes.
could help you to move forward. And I've often heard so many people who in cases that have felt lost or didn't feel like they had options, that they really felt that the military could be the thing that could help them to get on track. Then later I hear a bit more about it was the discipline that I needed.
Yes.
I hear that too.
So here's, and the reason I stopped there is because this is where that second life for me began. I left the military and I could not go back, and it was incredibly difficult because I had never been a civilian. I'm now 29 years old, trying to figure out how to live in a civilian world that I had no idea of how to do that. And not only that, it was there was a raging addiction that had captured me. So I ended up going back to my parents' house, and my father said, look, you're back again, same problem as the last time. You need to address this issue. So I ended up entering a 90-day recovery facility called Project 90. It's a 12-step program. It was the first time since I was 14 that I had 90 days without drugs and alcohol. And it was like, wow. But the thing is it taught me how to stop using, but it didn't teach me how to live life. And I had about a year about sobriety, and I was going to use again. And I knew it was coming, and it was not going to be pretty. At that point, the only options were going to be death, incarceration, or out on the streets again. And so I came up with the idea that I could not remember my past. I couldn't see my 14-year-old self. I don't remember my emotions. The military had shut them off. Drugs and alcohol shut them off. And I was clueless as to how to tap into that and begin to heal myself. So the idea I came up with is I looked for a job where I could work and see that age group dealing with the same issues I had. So I took an overnight position at a drug and alcohol recovery facility called Project 90, ages 13 to 17, a 1-year immersive program. And it was enlightening. It was inspiring. It was life-changing. What it had happened was I went there not to help kids. I went there very selfish. I wanted to figure out how to live life without drugs and alcohol and understand my emotions and my past and come to terms with it. Well, that's, everybody has what their will is, and then there's a will of something greater. And what turns out as me being selfish coming to take something for me was a gift given by all those young folks that taught me that I was trustworthy, that I was honorable, that I was a good person, that the past is the past. You come to terms with it and you move on. And in that 4-year period that I worked there, they gave me the grace of living life with full and complete giving of myself to the program. And because of that gift, because of the way it was offered to me, I felt an obligation. It was, I am huge on loyalty. And I saw that relationship as something to be cherished. And my loyalty to it was that I committed myself to understanding and working with youth at that age. At the end of 4 years, no education, no knowledge other than what I had learned in the previous 4 years. And I was never going to get a caseload because I had no college education. So I moved on under good terms, and I took the next job, which was fabulous too. I became a unit director of a Boys and Girls Club. Started with 59 kids. 4 years later, I had 440 youth, and the majority of them teenagers, and the education had even gotten more intense. Daytop, they had to talk. You're in a 1-year program. You're not going home unless you talk to the counselors. Boys and Girls Club, it was a $3 membership, and once they paid it, they didn't have to respect me. They didn't have to talk to me. They didn't have to do nothing. They had complete rights to the club. And I was like, wow. So I had thought that I was good because kids talked to me. You know what? When I got to the Boys and Girls Club, I had to rethink that. And I literally spent the next 2 years wanting to throttle every one of those kids because of you're disrespecting me. You're showing me no respect. You want me to respect you. And well, the bottom line is I was not going to give up. I wasn't going to give in. I had dedicated myself. My loyalty demanded it. My honor demanded it. And somewhere around the second year, it changed. And it was as though those young folks there knew that I could be counted on. My word was my bond. I showed up on time. And if I said I was going to do something, I did it. And somewhere around the second year, it went from, it wasn't adversarial. It was just, I can ignore you and just do whatever I want, to it became family. And that was the lesson that I learned, was I had a gift, that I had a talent and an ability to work with young people. And what had happened was, it started with the recovery facility, in that the addict and alcoholic, had demons. There were things in my past that were killing me, that I had to go back and come to terms with and deal with. And I learned that at Daytop. And then at the Boys and Girls Club, these kids are bringing me their secrets, the things that are happening to them and their families, things that are happening out on the playground. And I'm getting information that was never part of my childhood, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so at the end of 8 years, 4 years adolescent recovery, 4 years Boys and Girls Club, I went back to school. I got a bachelor's, a master's, a license, and a board certification. And those things look great on the wall, and it's given me so much. But the fact of the matter, I got that because I was not going. I found it unacceptable that a kid was going to come to me and say, "This is what's happening," and I didn't have the answer. I now have the answer, and if I don't, I know where to get it. And so, because of my loyalty and my bond with that generation who gave me my life back, I've dedicated my entire life, the last 35 years of working with, I'm more specific. With Honor Bound Academy, I had come to understand with generations, because I had seen a couple. My generation, the generation that I was dealing with, and the next generation that was coming up. And I saw what was similar and what was missing. And what I created in Honor Bound Academy was a rite of passage, a 1-year program. And so it was based in nature. I used the elements. I used mentorship. When I went through BUDS, there was an instructor corps that taught us how to be SEALs and got us through training. And that relationship, that love-hate relationship, we saw them as gods, because they were, they were real, true life warriors. They had done the deed, and we all wanted to be them. And that relationship, I did not take that relationship. I could not take the rite of passage and build it off of what I experienced in BUDS. I went with the Native American culture and how they transitioned their adolescence to adulthood, and came to understand that was a mentorship program where the guides took youth from adolescence and walked them through to adulthood, standing at their side, teaching and experiencing with them, allowing them to fall and fail, because failure is a right. And once you fail, the only way it truly is a failure is if you quit. Failure is a right. Stand up, get up, figure it out. Mm-hmm. Something wasn't good enough, something wasn't right, make yourself better. And so that was Honor Bound Academy. It never got to the level that I wanted it. My financial acumen as a businessman, I could never get it to that degree. So I shut that down. And for the last several years, I've been a speaker where I go out and I am able to speak to various types of groups. I go back to the Boys and Girls Club. I work with the homeless. I deal with all the various, I'm a social worker. And so that there is what brings me to today, which I had shared with you, got a birthday coming, and it's retirement time. And though the word, I'm a retiree, I'm not retired. What this allows me to do now is to take all that experience, that knowledge, that expertise, that prior I had family, I had to pay bills, I'm expensive. Bottom line is, if you experience me, it costs a lot of money. And at this stage, what I'm allowed to do is I have set my future in financial security so that I can volunteer. And not only volunteer, but volunteer where I want to go and give this knowledge. And this is where I get to go back to Boys and Girls Clubs. I go back to adolescent recovery facilities. I go to parents groups that are having kids that are suicidal, anxiety, depression, drugs. And I'm able to do that by what is truly in my heart is to give back free. And the heart of the volunteer is the strongest heart of all. And that's right now.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you did Honor Bound Academy, which I think is amazing. Like,
yes,
you created this space out in Sonoma, California. It was very nature based, which is so good to tap into. You touched the lives of 3,000 like young men.
Yeah.
And that within itself, just to have the idea to bring it to fruition can be really hard. Just probably finding the resources to make it sustainable was probably the bigger challenge. But as you did that work, like, I know, we've got people watching who can totally connect to this, and they're falling into that adolescent group. What would you say to that person who's struggling, because you've seen, obviously, to me, different dimensions of this, where you've been in the treatment centers working with adolescents. You've also been right there in community centers with the Boys and Girls Clubs, seeing probably plenty of kids who are suffering that don't even have the outlet yet. What do you say to that youth who in their minds will say, this doesn't get better? There is no hope, especially right now in today's world. It's looking a little bleak, a little bit. What would you say to them?
To start, it's the honorboundacademy.org. That's the website. And in that website is Honor Bound Academy. I put it all there for you to see how I ran it, first phase, second phase, third phase. I put all the statistical analysis, everything that went into it is on the website for you to take. Now, what I would say is we based it in nature. The power of nature is, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been a clinical therapist for the last 20 years. The most outstanding, the most powerful therapist I have ever met is Mother Nature. So if you're having issues, and probably in this modern era, and you're a teenager, you got the technology in your hand. Here's the thing is, you can go into nature with the technology in your hand, and in nature, it doesn't work. There's no cell towers. So yes. I got you in nature. And now just go out in nature and see what's there. I had at an earlier part in my career, and I've written about this, the Pacific Crest Trail exists in the United States from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. It goes through California, Oregon, and Washington. And it's broken into segments, and those segments are so many miles apart. And in each of those segments, there's a mailbox or a post office that you can start in Mexico and walk all the way to Canada. And you can choose your segments. I started in Belden, California, which is outside of Sacramento, and walked to the Oregon border. And I carried the equipment was really heavy, and I didn't want to carry food. So I had food sent to each of the mail boxes so that it took me 3, 4, 5 days to get to the next mailbox. And I could carry that much weight because it was diminishing each day as I ate it. And this is a challenge. Challenge yourself in nature. And what I got from it, what I get to share from you is nobody can ever take that from me. I made that walk. It thoroughly overwhelmed me physically, emotionally, spiritually. I could remember on like the third day out, I'm walking on the path and I'm exhausted, and I could look up and it's cresting and you can see a good distance. And I look down and there's a bear paw, and it's like really like it was just stepped there. And I'm looking around going, I'm a city boy. Come on now. What's this?
Right.
And the fact of the matter is all of those little gems are there. Nature is it. I still go to the ocean because I love the surf zone. And you can talk to, it's not just a Navy SEAL. Talk to any surfer. The surf zone, the water, it talks to you. It's where you can get in touch, and it literally will take your life or save your life, because it's not personal, it's nature. But the fact of the matter is, you can learn how to become one with. And that, again, is mine. No one can take it from me. It's my experience. I am trying to share with you to create experiences that are just yours, because what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is the feeling of self. We need to get you to see how you are just like every other human being, but like no other human being. You are unique to your moment in time and place.
Yes. Yes.
But your issues, that's what I learned in recovery, because everybody had the same issues, but nobody had. Men, I went to a men's, and men, we don't talk about nothing. So I'm sitting in a recovery facility, and they knew we weren't going to talk. So what they did was they gave us a piece of paper, and we wrote down the most horrible thing that ever happened to us. And we wrote it down, and we were all told to fold it the same way. So we folded it in half and then in a quarter. So everybody in the room, and there was like 40 of us. We don't know which one. It was put into a hat, and then everybody drew from the hat, and then we read that one. So you heard yours, somebody else reading it. So it was said to the group, because what's killing you inside has to find its way out. Okay. That's what Daytop gave me. That was because of that, I have committed, because of what that group gave me, that they trusted by sharing in the group the secrets that at that point I hadn't, because I was afraid. I was a coward. And I'm working there telling them what they have to do. And I'm sitting back going, oh my God, look at these 18, 19-year-olds. And I'm a former Navy SEAL, and I'm petrified to tell my truth. Well, you know what? They had the courage. I found the courage. And I found the courage because they showed me the courage. And because of that gift, I will never leave them until the day they bury me, because that's what honor and loyalty and nobility, all of that is what drives me today. And it's all because of young people. And that's why I'm here sharing that with you.
You know, Thomas, one of the things that when I work with people in therapy that I talk about, and I have a background in addiction studies too, and what you just talked about, when I did my externship hours, I actually did it at an addiction facility, and it was all men. There were no women. And I chose it deliberately. And I found it to be very eye-opening, to be honest, how men, that emotional shutdown, that mental shutdown. But when we got to the point they shared, that vulnerability was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it was probably the first time, and some people said it, in their lives that they have ever felt they connected with people and could be themselves and not be judged and not be afraid. And to have a space where you don't feel afraid is so important. But one of the things that with younger people, and tell me how you kind of work with this, is I always feel, not just younger people, but in general, anger is the easiest emotion for people to elicit and to bring to the surface. And the thing I always say, well, we know that anger isn't the real emotion. What's under the surface? Is it disappointment? Is it abandonment? Is it, anxiety? What is the thing that is bringing the anger to the surface? But I think the thing that most people miss about anger, and when I say this, someone's going to go, that's different, but I'm going to think about it. Anger is probably your best friend. And you know why I say that? Because the minute that anger steps on the stage with you, it means someone has done something to you that either makes you feel disrespected, violated, unappreciated, disregarded, whatever it is. They have drawn that part of you that says, wait a minute, what's happening here? Why are you treating me like that? Now, the difference with anger is your best friend, because, you can have two best friends. You can have that best friend that wants to run out and fight and make a fool of both of you together, or you can have that best friend that's like, stop, let's talk about this. Okay, what really happened here? What's going on? How are we going to handle this? So it's like anger can be that angel or demon. It could be the thing that makes you make a better decision and decide how you're going to interact with people in your lives. Or on the flip side, it can have you run off and do things that can be risky or painful for yourself. So when you see a lot of younger people probably harnessing anger, and it's usually it's honest, what do you do with that?
Well, here's the thing is, we both do the clinical and we both see the same thing. And I agree with you, but it's slightly different for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, anger is fear-based from my experience.
Okay.
There's a fear, and the fear is something is going to be taken from you or something's going to be denied you. And that's what you said. And it creates anger. So that if you want to deal with the anger, understand the fear. And anger was what drove me to finish that walk in the Pacific Crest Trail. Anger is what found me doing the 12 steps. And then the other one, I went back to academia. I was 38 years old for the bachelor's. I was 40 years old for the master's. So 38 to 42, I got my bachelor's and my master's. I was pissed off every day because I went back to school. I went onto the campus. I went and saw the instructors that live in the ivory tower and think that they're smarter than anyone else. And I'm coming from a world of experience. I'm a former Navy SEAL. I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic. I have, done all these things. And you're going to tell me from that, I was angry the entire time. And I used that anger to graduate. So as you say it's a love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But anger has a place. It's an emotion. Yes. I'm just, from a clinical standpoint, when I've got somebody that's come to me with anger issues, especially men who hit walls, hit other people, and the worst of all, men who hit women. That's the only time I want to hit a man again still. But the fact of the matter is, how do you get that to change? And that's where anger has to be provided to the individual in such a way that, as you said, never thought about it that way. So that you set them off balance because you're saying you can keep your anger. What do you mean keep my anger? Well, anger is not good or bad. How you use it. So I'm in agreement with you, and that's kind of my perspective. So we have the masculine and the feminine side by side there. How's that?
There you go. Right there. But we all kind of, like you said, it's really about the way you choose to see something.
Yes.
There's perspective and there's perception. And I always tell people, learn the difference. Because perception is when you're sitting in something and you may not really have a lot of depth to it. So it's maybe just about the experience. Whereas perspective has you step outside of just perception and ask you to say, well, what's happening over there? What's on the horizon? Well, what was behind me? It asks you to look at things like the forest for the trees kind of thing. But most people, when they're angry or fearful and they're using it in a negative capacity, they're only operating from a position of perception, not perspective. Okay, so you do Outer Bound Academy, you pour into this, you change, 3,000 young men's lives, right? And you decided, okay, but I can't keep running at this pace. We often learn this when we're altruistic. Some things you just cannot keep up at a pace, but I also feel like deep down inside, you want to touch more lives. You want to reach out, you want to get to more people. So there enters Thomas LaGrave Jr., the author. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to say this, if you're not a reader in this world, you really need to change up that mindset, because they say it a lot, not just me. If you want to hide stuff from something, put it in print, because people don't want to read anything. And I do believe that's true. People hate to read, but when it's something good and worth it, most of the time you forget you're even reading something. So Thomas has two amazing books that he has written. The first book is The Bell Tolls for Thee, a soliloquy. And the second book is Special Welfare, Social Warfare. We're going to talk about both of these books. Obviously, you should know that the Special Welfare kind of focuses on, today's youth and transition from, adolescence to adulthood. And both these books, to me, probably have a lot of good, honest social commentary. So let's start with your first book, is the belt tolls for thee. And I love when I was reading about it that you were going to use like a pen name, you're going to, be anonymous and not known. Which one? Can I ask you a question? Why did you want to be anonymous? Like, why not just come out the gates and just be who you were? Like, why? What was the thought behind not writing as Thomas, but being someone else initially?
Yeah. So sobriety allows for the addict and alcoholic to create a spiritual realm, a spiritual understanding. And I found that by giving without your name attached to it is a power unto itself that comes back in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. So I wanted to put the energy out there for community, for culture, for others. And you don't put a name on it, then the reader is the writer. And I'm thinking that I want the energy from the spiritual domain of offering it without putting my name on it.
One of the things that we talk about in therapy, and this popped in my head, and I would be curious what you think about it as a form of catharsis, so to speak. So, we always talk about journaling, and some people hate the idea, like because they see it as writing, and they probably have a bad experience from school. So they're like, I don't want to write. Whereas I'm like, well, you're really writing about you. It's not about just this general topic that someone forced you to research and write about. Do you feel there is a very therapeutic type benefit to if people journal, but maybe do it more in context of their writing about their lives? Like if they were to write a book, not that they may ever publish it, but if they wrote their lives by chapters, and kind of began to explore each one of those chapters, do you feel, especially when it comes to something like addiction and trauma, that could be something that could be beneficial for people to change the idea about the concept of journaling?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I grew up in a house with a mother who was a voracious reader, and in our front room was a library. That was my mother. So when I went into the military, she pleaded with me, just journal, write things. And she said, look, she got it down to, and why I finally did it was just write a sentence. So I'm in buds, and I was a somewhat winter class. I at Christmas we took a break, so I'd done first phase, second phase. I was going back to buds, third phase. I went home for Christmas, and my mother put that on me, so I went back and buds third phase. I journaled. Today, I hold that in my hand and can read back, and I'm taken back to the moment. The words lock in the emotions. When you think back, I can think back to training. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. It's fun. But when you read it, I remember, because a lot of pain. I'm in pain like this. And every entry had a pain. And so when I'm reading it, I'm feeling the pain and I'm feeling the emotion. That's why you journal. Now, before we lose this point, let me throw this one out on you. Average reading level of America, third grade. Do you wonder why people don't want to read? It's because they can't. Now, I say that because that's the lesson of the second book that I'm trying to share with a generation of youth, that you know what? You better start doing research. You better understand what the truth is. You better start reading this material, because if you don't, you're going to end up my age and you're not going to like what you're going to see there. And that's why I wrote the second book, because 5 years ago, I saw this coming. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's the reason that you journal, is it locks in the emotion so that years later, when you read it, you feel it again. And when you feel it again, it creates thoughts that you've forgotten or thoughts that you never had processed before. Because what happens over time is maturity. We got wiser, at least we're supposed to.
Yes.
And so you read what you read 6 years ago and you see the growth. So write it down is leaving you a marker that is far more profound than memory.
I'm going to agree with you 100%. And that's when I try to get people to journal. That's what I say. I'm like, if you journal, it really gives us a roadmap of where you started and where you are. And like you said, you get to see the growth, because it is easy to forget maybe where the emotion sat when you felt like you were in this bad place. Because part of what the brain loves to do with trauma is minimize it, not think about it. Not all the details aren't there necessarily. But when you write it down, you get to go back and read and go, wow, I have legitimately grown. I didn't even realize that that was the place that I was sitting. And that's why I encourage people. It's like not because I'm trying to give you a task or homework, but it is a way for you to be able to really see how much change and your efforts that you put forward, how you've grown. So yes, I'm glad that so people could get that journaling, hearing it from another therapist is not just a task. It legitimately has a purpose. So as you work through the first book, what were the nuggets from that book that you feel that as people read it, they're going to go through this journey with you? What does that journey look like?
Well, here's the thing is where the book was written. I was a government contractor working with the military as a clinician in a program called Military Family Life Consultant. And I started and finished that book in 4 months that I was on assignment in the Horn of Africa in Djibouti. So I started it in Djibouti, and then I did some time in Ethiopia, and then finished it in Kenya. And I'm sitting on the Great Rift Valley in Kenya. And the reason that I bring that up is because if we evolved and came out of Africa, we walk through there. Everybody's origin comes through, and I'm looking down at the Great Rift Valley as I wrote The Bell Tolls for Thee. And so it was like my first attempt at creation. Men, we don't have babies. We have kids, but the creation of the book was like no other experience I've ever experienced in writing it, because it required focus, it required determination. I used my anger. All of it went into writing that book. And I told the story of my evolution from birth to where I was sitting, and then shared a thought at the very end that I won't give you because I would prefer you read the book.
Want to read the book? Okay. That's a heck of a journey in writing that book. The fact that where you were at, seeing, I'm sure the nature was such an inspiration. Just everything you just named
way different.
Was way different. And you're like, it is the essence of life. Often when you get to continents like Africa, you're talking about where there's a lot of change, but there's a lot of still things that sit in its simplicity and beauty, which is amazing. So yes. So then you do that. So what kind of motivated you to write then the second book?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I started it and we published October 2024. So 2020, I am like the Trump administration had, and we saw that, and was no more. But I'm like, this guy's coming back. And round two is, he learned from round one how to do round two. And I knew and wrote it before it happened and shared. It's a story of how we got here, what it is that we're dealing with, how the voice that's the only voice that's important to me and should be important to the world is the voice of youth. And they're getting drowned out by the boomer generation, Generation X, and the millennials. And right now, the big, beautiful bill, that's it. They got the bill. I get the benefit. And I don't find that acceptable. That's part of, I wrote, what happened? How did we get here? What happened to the money? Where's the money? And what is it that our youth want? And that's the story I told in the book, Special Welfare, Social Warfare, Adolescence to Adulthood, a guidebook. Because if we do not rectify the money, if we don't correct that, because there's been disparities in wealth before in the 1920s. If you do your homework, it happened before. It's there. But the problem with it today is we are so angry with one another, and we are wanting, at this point, if we do not address the special welfare, we're going to end up in social warfare. Wow. And we're already seeing it.
Or kind of knocking on the door. And actually, what you're saying is something that I want people to make a correlation with. When you hear someone say in their, social rhetoric, there's a lot of it going on right now about we are combating people being woke.
Yeah.
That should make everybody actually raise their eyebrow, like legitimately. Because what that really means, now, mind you, I will tell you that the idea of woke was initially a term that originated in the African American community. It was really about looking at social injustice, inequality, a lack of equity, things of those nature. It was born from the idea of the civil rights movement, where there was this, you could say, renaissance of knowing your history, but understanding the social injustice and what it and how it affects you. That's where the idea of woke came from, understanding social injustice and wanting to take a stand against it. So I look at people and say, when somebody tells you is an issue with being woke, you should be concerned. Because that's like saying, go back to sleep, don't learn anything, and just go along with the system. Well, for some people, the system is not designed to benefit them. And what you're saying is, and I agree with you, generations, I understand they love social media, but you must go back and learn everything. Don't take everything at face value. Like I watch the news all the time, and I'm like, that's highly inaccurate when they talk about economics. Most kids barely got economics in school. Let's just start with that. History is very watered down. So if you take the time to go learn about things outside of what you've been told, you actually will be floored and be like, wow, that's interesting. That's not the narrative that I was given. So you should learn how to seek out knowledge and learn. And if nothing else, I hope our younger generations have come to understand. I do believe that we have probably failed them epically, Thomas, but at the same time, I think that we were failed. So we keep failing. We keep failing our youth. And I feel like you're stepping forward and you're saying it is time that we stop failing our youth. We have to do better because we can no longer use the excuse that, okay, well, it wasn't given to me, so I didn't think to give it to someone else. And I like the fact that one, you've put it in print. It's like, it sounds like you're giving them an honest guidebook of how to rethink and how to create better spaces for themselves.
Yeah. So here's the piece. This is a fact, and you can go back and see it. The beauty of it is Donald Rumsfeld brought it up in the Bush administration in 2000. He said that there's $2 trillion missing out of the Pentagon. Today, $23 trillion is missing, unaccounted for. Now, here's the thing. Divide and conquer. I am at heart a soldier. I see war. And the fact of the matter is, you divide, you conquer by dividing. The issues aren't any of the things that you're talking about. Look at the disparity of wealth, because it doesn't matter the color of your skin, doesn't matter your gender, your orientation. All of us are being led by the nose, being deceived. The fact of the matter is, the only thing that matters is where's the money, the disparity between the wealthiest 1%. And in the book, I told the story, I wrote it out, I shared with you where you can go and find where journalists tried to give it to us. They tried to give it to the world. We saw it. It was on 60 Minutes for a minute and a half, and we forgot about it. But the 1% has 90% of the world's wealth, and 99% of the population. We're scrambling for 1% of the wealth. And the issue is nothing but the money. The book talks about that. And it also shares with you, young generation. I know that the global warming issue is messing with your head. And my generation doesn't care. And the fact of the matter is, there's answers there too. And nobody wants to go to where the true issues are. So into the book, I told the truth for you. And if you can't read, that's all right. I've got it in, what is it? Audio.
There you go. There you
Listen
go.
to it.
Listen
And
to it.
argue,
I like
and
that.
don't buy it. Look, here's the thing. I am not asking you to trust me. I'm asking for the opportunity to earn your trust. That's all that matters, is earning your trust. I'm in for the long haul. I'm in till death do us part. And in that time, I'm bringing all the knowledge, all the insight. I just need to be told by you what you want me to do.
Can't beat that. I love your sign in the back that says, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. See, it's that right there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
That
easy is not what we want.
easy is, if it's easy, you should really rethink how much you want it, because anything worth having is always going to be some work. So for sure, that is very, very truthful. And right now, what you're telling me, your book touches on two things that instantly have popped in my head. That one, it's been said forever, but people don't take it seriously. Knowledge is power. Because once you are armed with knowledge, you can make different decisions in how you're going to proceed with your life. And two, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And we have generations of people who legitimately are wasting their minds. And like you said, they're being led like lemmings. Partially because some of our generations, those I'm included, probably didn't do all the things that we should have to prepare them. Of course, I'm not sure if we were prepared for what's happening. Even though I'm with you on this. Several years ago, I saw something coming too. I knew that Trump would be reelected. I could see so many things happening in front of me. And it was interesting how people were just not getting it. And here we stand. So we can choose to stand together and fix this, or let the division continue to pull us apart. Well, again, let me put these books up, everybody. I like the fact that, Thomas, you said, let me earn your trust. Read the books. Tell me what you think. Check out the books so you can learn more about his passion and purpose about focusing on today's youth, helping you go from being youth to, obviously to adulthood, because there is no manual. And it sounds like I said, there's a lot of good social commentary. It sounds like both of the books are available on Amazon, which is great. But I also let me give a plug. Is there anywhere else they can get the book that's more beneficial to you than Amazon? Just wondering.
Amazon's that's where I went.
That's where you went. Okay. Just want to make sure you maybe on the website, maybe you could buy the book. So I just want to make sure that that's the key place. Amazon sells everything. I get it. So to me, it sounds very worthy of young people reading those books. It sounds like a very interesting, you're going to hear something from someone that it sounds like there's a lot of pieces of you that, Thomas, people can identify with, like legitimately in your story. And I think whether you can identify or not, it sounds like it's something that people still need to pick up, read. I'm going to say this for no matter who watches the show, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, this sounds like a book that you should probably gift to your young adults. So when you think about gifts you want to give someone on their birthday or Christmas, give them a gift of knowledge, something that could change their world moving forward. So we should maybe be smart in thinking about our gifts. Anything you want to share with our guests before we wrap everything up?
No, you know what? This has been awesome. It stayed true to the point. It's all about this next generation. You are the future, and it's not too late. And there's a saying, none of us is as good as all of us. Together, the change, and that's the fear of power. They know that the masses can rebel. Our history is replete, and that's what we're at again. But the problem with it is revolution kills everything. It kills the dream, and it leaves everybody poorer. It's a different approach of creating the revolution this time, being side by side. And you can have your technology in your hand. I'm fine with that. But look up and see who's there with you and know that you all matter.
So everybody, Thomas is a person to know. So get social with Thomas. You can find him on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Thomas LaGrave Jr. Make sure you go to Honor Bound Academy if you want to learn more about the books and his journey and what he does. And if I'm correct too, and if I remember and looking on the site, if someone wants to bring you in to be a speaker, the information is there also how to bring you in to be a speaker as well, correct?
Yep. Yes, it is.
See, you can't beat that piece right there. Thomas, parting words before we let you go.
You know what? Just thank you, Maya. You're bringing and fulfilling a need by the guests that you bring together. So I want to shout out to you and thank you for the opportunity that you've given me so that I can share what I love sharing. And that is what's going on with the world of adolescent young adults.
Before I
Thank
do
you.
this, I always like this is something I always said I wanted to bring into the show. So I have my associate producer, Riley, who is part of that young generation. Riley, can I bring you on? Do you want to share your thoughts about what you've heard us talk about? Because she's young, so she's in those 20s. So Riley, welcome to the stage. Hearing
Sweet.
Thomas talk, any thoughts? Do you want to share anything? What would you share with your generation based on what you heard?
Hi. I really liked the talking about what's easy and what's worth it. I actually just recently went and spoke about my recovery journey with some people at a rehab facility that I went to. And I told them that the easy things make life hard, but the hard things make life easy. And so that kind of related to just what I've been speaking out to people. Yeah, and everything was really great to listen to. So no complaints.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that you got to share your story too. Because it needs to be told. People need to hear that we're not alone.
And that's the key piece, not being alone.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. Well, again, as always, Thomas, thank you for being on the show. As you know, we continue on with the ambition shows. So as I said, I'm super excited. The next person to actually be on the ambition show next Saturday is going to be Deborah Weed. Okay, again, another person that I can't wait to bring on because she's going to share, obviously, she's had her journey to get to where she is, but she tells this amazing story about self-worth in a way that people can connect. And obviously, she's an author, she's a playwright, she's big on women's empowerment, but she's also an advocate for self-worth. And it's going to be a great episode to listen to as well, because when she shares her story, but what she's trying to achieve with this play that she's writing, when I tell you, the example is so powerful. And I think so many people, it's going to resonate with the idea of understanding self-worth, but understanding when you've almost given up on yourself and given everything away. And she talks about the idea of redemption and saving yourself. So Deborah Weed will be on next Saturday, August 30th at 2 p.m. She is the next amazing person who is going to be on the ambition stage. And I cannot wait to share her story with you as well, because so far everybody has been amazing. So everyone, with that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. Because, like I said, the podcast is focused on helping you to identify your ambition and to harness and to grow. And if you walk away with something from this show or the next show, that's all that matters to me, is that you find a space to begin to explore the deeper parts of who you are, because everybody is amazing in some way, shape, or form. So there's 70 episodes. You can always find your episodes on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Audibles, Spotify. Pretty much, if it's a podcast platform, all you have to do is search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. You can find it. But I can make things easier, if you pretty much just go to the website, maya-speaks.com. Everything is there. I'm going to encourage everyone to subscribe and share the YouTube channel, because you can go back and watch all kinds of episodes about different things at M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. See, I'm getting it together because all my social media now is all the same handle. It took me a minute to get there, but I'm there. So everything is M.A.Y.A Speaks to You as well. So you can always, go and watch former episodes, the post. I'm definitely going to ask you to make sure that you tune in, though, to the website, because every week on Wednesdays, I post something on both my blogs. There is the inspiration blogs, something for you to process and to think about for a week. I'm never going to do it daily, because when I put something on the table, I really want you to process it. And then, of course, the Me on Pause, which is a play on words for menopause, the blog that helps women to understand what it means to go through that transition that everybody just thinks at this point is kind of a figment of our imagination, but we know better than that. So make sure you check those things out. But until next time, everyone, remember, this is key, and it's very important, that your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So live every day to the fullest. Those are not my words. Those are actually lyrics from, it's funny. They're not my words, and I love it so much, but hopefully it makes sense, because someone said, you mentioned that and I wasn't sure exactly what to take from that. What do you mean? Because your present as it moves to the past is just that. And your future is the present as it stands. We always think bigger about the future. So it's Pearl Jam. It's Dancing with Clairvoyance is what the song is. And that's a lyric from there, from Pearl Jam. So it isn't my words, but I'm going to add another piece of nugget to this before we close out. And because I think, Thomas, you made me think about this, and it's worth people thinking about. Annie DeFranco is a Canadian folk singer, and she has a song that talks about every tool can be a weapon depending upon how you hold it. And so we talked about the idea of anger. Anger can be a tool depending upon how you choose to use it. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of Maya. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you next Saturday, 2 p.m. with Deborah Weed. It's going to be amazing. So make sure you all stay safe and you stay tuned in. Check out former episodes, and I'll see you next Saturday. Good stuff.
Whether you're on the go or listening on your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, you can find the show in the iTunes, Google, and iHeartRadio platforms.
With all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just search Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and get ready to be inspired and motivated to harness your ambition.